My name is Diego. I grew up in a dairy farm in northern Italy. I grew up in a situation and a time when foraging for wild food was an ongoing practice. So as a young kid, I used to be sent out in the fields to go and collect the spring bitter greens, and then in the summer times there were the berries, and then later on in the autumn days there were the mushrooms. When I moved to Australia about 25 years ago, I started to engage with wild food sources just the same as I always done. So I started to go in plantations to go and collect mushrooms. I started to collect the blackberries and mulberries. And from there I never stopped. You always keep going. I worked for many years in orchards and in garden centers. I eventually got a degree in fine arts, and I started to use this passion for wild produce as an interesting way to investigate what it means to engage to land. As a non-native, as a foreigner, how is it that I come to Australia and I can find a way to understand systems? I started to find out the differences by the species I knew best, the exotic species. And I used those as an entry point to understand land and processes. Through that, I started to run workshops, I started to run guided tours where I take people out in abandoned gardens or in fields, and I highlight all of the different species and how these different pieces bring narratives with them, brings stories with them. And when people came around and engaged with this journey I prepared for them, they discovered a new way to see the land, a new way to read the land. In a way, I started to provide the tools and the colors and the textures to be able to read the landscape in a different way. If I were a painter, I would look at a landscape and paint it with beautiful colors and beautiful brush strokes. I use stories and narratives and anecdotes and little jokes and little verbal effects to paint a new landscape in people's minds, in people's eyes, using jokes and narratives as brushstrokes and colors. WildFood Store is effectively a company which aims to create a marketplace for wild harvested produce. As an environmental educator, I've been asked for many years to provide this kind of produce. And who's got the produce? Farmers, people living on the lands, and people living close to the environment. I engage directly with the people who are harvesting the wild food ingredients. So these stories that brings the meanings and the narratives that connect humans to land, to produce. Through those stories, the narratives will come to the plates of the people eating the food. I believe it's a fantastic opportunity that we have with these projects to come in with different narratives from very different points of view, so we can find effective, environmentally clever ways to engage with the obligation that we have as a species for the future. We need to come at the table and start talking. Curiosity is the best teacher. Is the way you find out about things is because you care to know. So if you care to know, knowledge accumulates.